When you were young in school, then the first thing we measured was height, isn't it? And then we put you on a weighing scale. What were we measuring? Were you developing as a human being, or were you growing as a person? So, growth in very many ways is very tangible. It is something that can be measured. 4.5 foot से 5 foot के हुए, right? Country. How do you measure a country's growth? So, that's a good point. Does a country grow because its population grows, or does it grow because its GDP?
Human development.
Human? See the word. It is Human Development Index. That. Whereas when you do GDP, you're doing. What is it? What does GDP stand for? Domestic product. Production. Now think of yourself. Have you all stopped growing? I hope you have. You should at least not be growing on the waist, which is where growth, gets centered after a while. After you are 17, 18, the only thing that grows is your waist. You don't grow in height. Have you stopped developing? When do you stop growing? One answer is we stop growing when we die. When do you stop learning? Or do you stop learning when you become a teacher? When I started teaching, my mom used to, she was also a teacher. She said, the day you stop learning, stop teaching. Every class, I don't know about you, I learn a lot. And I have taught, a few thousand classes still. So what we are going to look at is simply this. What does growth mean? When does growth begin? When does growth stop? And very critically, why is it important to grow? If you are Satya Nadella, the world's largest operating system firm, or if you are Sundar Pichai, the world's largest, software firm, should you stop growing? Why do you want to grow even more? Alphabet, some 300, whatever trillion dollars worth. Why do you want to grow more? You are Satya Nadella. Why do you want to grow more? Your company is the biggest in the world. You are getting some $1 million of salary. Why do you want to trample you? Is that why you grow?
Evolving time with time. The more you grow, the more you achieve.
So should achievement go on forever? How much will you achieve? Isn't it time for Virat Kohli to hang his bat? Tough question, isn't it? When should he retire? So these are the questions that are the substantial, basic questions that all of us ask ourselves all the time. When do we stop? In the passing, I will mention several books that are my favorites. Some of them. The first one that I will encourage all of you to read is a book called The Myth of Sisyphus. I am confident that you know the spelling, but this is just for my. This is a book written 100 years ago by anybody here who's come across this book. This was a phenomenal chap who wrote this book. He's till date the only person who has played World Cup football and won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Can you imagine? There is somebody like that. So that was Albert Camus. Albert Camus, a French Algerian, he played for Algeria in the 1932 World Cup and then got the Nobel Prize. Now, what did Albert Camus mean when he was writing this book, The Myth of Sisyphus? And here is a deeply philosophical question, which is the question of when do you stop? So, who is Sisyphus? Sisyphus is this chap who's cursed by the gods. Right? You know, Greek literature is full of fellows who did wrong and they were cursed. There is one fellow who's holding the world up, and there's one fellow who's working away. You've heard of all these chaps. Who is holding the world up? Atlas. Right? And in Hindu philosophy, who's holding the world up? Yeah? So, Sisyphus is condemned to do this strange thing. There is a mountain and there is this big boulder, and Sisyphus has to push that boulder up. He goes up, it's such a heavy boulder that he moves up 2 steps and it rolls back 2 steps. Now, he's been doing it forever. When should he stop? It is futile. There is no way he can take a 3rd step. It is beyond his strength. If he stops, it will roll over him and he will die. When should he stop? When would you stop? When do you give up? Why is Sisyphus not giving up? 10,000 years now. Why is Atlas not giving up? A useless thing, is holding up a world. Why should he not just shrug?
Never to give up.
Against certainty, there is no hope at all. But he is continuing.
Purpose?
Without, what's the purpose?
I mean, he's stuck. The purpose.
He's stuck.
Mentally stuck.
And physically.
Physically,
Yeah.
of course, yeah, but mentally. He's unable to think beyond that. He's limited his fear to just pushing it forward.
So has he lost the ability to think? Or does he continue to battle this certainty of defeat and say, no, I'm going to try again tomorrow? So read this book. It's a fabulous book, right? On this constant fight against death. And why do we not give up? Okay. So, Amir's Bashir Badar, and so as Mir would say, how many of you can complete this share of mine? Jung. Good no ke balcha. It's about getting up there and fighting a good fight. If you are crawling, you will not fall. That's the good news. Okay, so I'll tell you these few things again. This is what I'll talk about today. Now, as I told you that all this has to do with my profession. All this comes from several economists, most of whom got a Nobel Prize. There are these three chaps who got the Nobel Prize this year for economics. Does anyone here know what they got it for?
The last time said in MS.
What was it this year? What did they get it for?
Innovation does not drive.
Very good. You remember that, right? So they are saying, they are making a very simple thing. They are saying that
Innovation does not drive the growth, rather it's stagnation.
that the question they are asking is, what is permanent? Change or stagnation? They are saying it is stagnation. The common wisdom is change. They are saying, look at the world. For thousands of years, it is stagnant. You know, the world that existed before fire, a few thousand years. With fire, a few thousand years. Settled agriculture, another 1,000 years. Change comes once in a while. And that's why they say that it is that the thirst for change, the endeavor to change has to be permanent. Change doesn't come by itself. They say that for countries, they say that for individuals. In our lives, most of the time we are stagnant. How many times in your life have you had staggering changes in your lifestyle? Every day is the same. And if you allow every day to be the same, stagnation steps in. It's the most comfortable thing to be. Change requires experimentation. Change is fraught with danger. Change is expensive. And most important, change is setting you up for failure. So here is this next question. You will all become, decision makers. You will make decisions in your lives. All of us make decisions. Right? You made several decisions since morning. The decision to wear a black shirt. You open your wardrobe, 20, 30, 40 shirt. Big decision. Isn't it? The morning starts with making decisions. Now, you have two people who are working under you. And you can promote one of them. One makes 9 correct decisions out of 10. The other fellow makes 9 wrong decisions out of 10. Who's the better child?
Depends on the decision.
Who has more impact?
You see, these 9 things he's doing is, which shirt to make, how many rotis to eat, and, whether I should, turn left or right. Those kind of meaningless, trivial decisions. So, whereas this one fellow is making one solid decision. So, it is a difficult thing to judge as to who is more successful, and we will see. Because you see, when he is making big decisions, he is going to make mistakes 9 times out of 10. And you will see that the more successful people will be those who have made the more mistakes. Remember this fellow called Michael Jordan? Anyone here? In what context? Yeah? So Michael Jordan, 40,000 whatever 3-pointers. So they said, wow, you have such a brilliant record. He said, yeah, but you don't talk about the 4 million 3-pointers I missed. I got those 40,000 because I attempted 4.5 million 3-pointers. So, let's see how experimentation works, what innovation is. This is basically what I'm going to talk about. As Faiz would say, complete this share of Faiz. अगर बाजी इश्क की बाजी है, जो चाहो लगा दो, डर कैसा. अगर जीत गए तो क्या कहना, हारे भी तो बाजी मारनी. So go ahead, right? Put everything there. Even if you lose, doesn't matter. He obviously hadn't met all these Majnu type of fellows. एक बार हार गए तो जिंदगी खत्म. But for the rest of us, remember we are, and this is what John Maynard Keynes said 100 years ago. For all of you who want to learn economics, Keynes was one of the most influential economists. And what did Keynes talk about? Among several things, he talked about the functions of money. And he said, here's a question, why do we earn money? We all want in this business of earning money. Why? Why do we want money?
Medium of exchange.
So it's a medium of exchange. But why do you want money? To make a living. What does money do? How does it help you make a living? Fulfill your needs. How many needs do you have? That you can buy. There are needs that you can't buy. Right? MasterCard. But how much money do you spend on food? When you come to my age and my level, you will be spending, really nothing on food. Because if you spend more than 2% of your income on food, then you are either wasting money or getting obese. What else? Clothes, hardly anything. What do you need money for? So Keynes says that the fundamental motive for money is transactional, that you have to go and buy things. Small, as you become richer and richer, that becomes smaller and smaller. The poorest spend all their money on transactions. That's what is called a subsistence living. The second motive of money is contingencies, emergencies. You fall ill, break your leg, heart attack, whatever. Today with ATMs and stuff, you don't need too much to carry too much cash. That's a little. The largest use of money, is what he calls as speculative need. This goes to the fundamental motive, the fundamental thing that we all do. Most of our time, we are speculating. We are gambling. Why are you here? When you entered this place yesterday, what were you doing? Were you going to get some food? I hope that's not why you came. You came here because someone told you, or you thought, ये बाजी खेल के देखते. Maybe I'll get something at the end of the day. Speculation, isn't it? When you go to school, maybe you will get something out of it. Isn't it? I don't know how many of you are, but soon some of you will be. You will get married. Ultimate gamble. Pure speculation. And then you have children. Even bigger of a speculation. How will that kid grow up? No, I don't know whether you read this really bad, sad news yesterday. This former Director General of Police in Punjab. All his life spent battling drugs. Little realizing that his son was an addict. And today the police is investigating whether the husband and wife killed the son or whether he died of overdose. Imagine, that decision you have to take. Or that other fellow in Haryana who shoots his daughter down a month ago because she gets 2 marks less in the NEET exam than he thinks she should. A father killing a daughter. Right? Too much gamble there. Too many stakes. Not knowing the odds. So we all gamble most of the time. And that's where I start to tell you a story wherein I bring in all these aspects of why we need to be positive and why do we need to constantly dream of and work towards growth. And that story